Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out with the one and only. He's extremely happy, not throwing any punches at the moment. It is happy punches, Donagh Corby. Donagh, how you doing, sir?
Very well, Eamon. How are you?
Yeah, all the better to be speaking to you as well too. You had
Hey, I
some.
may be I may be happy to punch, but shout out, I'm quite quiet about it. The quiet punch. If if anyone is watching, go buy this. I think Happy Punch is involved in some way, and expect to see our fighters using these very soon. Shout out, Quiet Punch. You rule. Seconds out. Quiet Punch. Let's go.
That's the sound your punches make when you hit opponents. Apparently,
Well, yep. Well, they certainly don't hurt. They're certainly not power punches. So
they're not power punches indeed, but some power punches were landed recently in two big moments, two developments in the influencer scene. I want to start off with what was known to us first. That was Jake Paul versus Andre August. Now, not a lot was known about Andre August, and he didn't really offer too much either in the ring, but Jake Paul served up another highlight reel knockout.
yeah, bro. Jake is going down this new kind of route of solidifying himself as a legitimate boxer, and he started that out against Andre on Friday night. Andre August 10-1 as a professional. I believe he'd won the Golden Gloves as an amateur, but he said he'd had like a short amateur career. I believe he'd had maybe 20 or 30 amateur fights, so nothing crazy, but evidently had been able to win some tournaments there. And he'd been out for a while. He had one comeback fight, I think, early last year or in the middle of this year, and he was contacted. I believe he was contacted multiple times. My old pals at the Daily Mirror had an interview with him, and he was saying that they kept going back to him. So obviously Jake's team knew what they were dealing with. But yeah, Andre August, flattered to deceive, I suppose. But also, Jake looked good and his movement was good, and the knockout was so great that everyone thinks it was fake.
Yeah, leading on to that specifically, what do you feel to that feeling from some? I mean, this happens whenever Jake Paul or others in the industry have these high level knockouts and they question the legitimacy of them. Do you question it?
No, I think it's idiotic. I don't question the legitimacy of almost any of these knockouts. There's like maybe been one or two ever, and I won't say which because I don't want to get in trouble. But there's like I think there's one or two ever, and they've never involved anyone like Jake Paul or KSI or any of these big names. Smaller names, people like just there have been a small few, but like the amount that Jake would be putting on the line to risk faking a knockout against someone like Andre August, who he could probably beat anyway, who's kind of passed to do smaller for a cruiserweight, I mean, a minuscule cruiserweight. He could probably beat Andre August by decision, even if he didn't have the power to knock him out and he was faking a knockout. There's just no need for Jake to do something like that. It's such a monster risk. And the same with someone like KSI, who go, oh, that was a fixed whatever. Why would KSI fix this stuff? These guys are both just big punchers, and they're fighting against people who I guess don't have great punch resistance. That's not that crazy that they're getting these knockouts.
How fruitful is this new path for Jake Paul? Because the influencer scene, there are still fights for him to make and to have, with the big one still there yet to be made between the two. But this path that is going down to further legitimize himself as then establish himself as the novice boxer, and going on to fulfilling his dream of trying to challenge and win a world title. Do you feel it will be fruitful for Jake? Do you feel it's the right way to go?
Yeah, I think I look, it's not fruitful right now, and he's probably not making a great deal of money off of these couple of fights. I mean, he was free on DAZN, which is a rarity for someone of Jake's star power. Although DAZN, like, they're coming under a lot of criticism for example, like Haney and Prograis, tough pay-per-view fight to sell, right? And I'm sure it wasn't the biggest hitter ever. I've seen some numbers out there that are certainly not the accurate number, that are way up there. But fights like Jake versus Andre August, Anthony Joshua, his two this year, Hellenius and Jermaine Franklin, like these are like just good quality DAZN fights. And then obviously all your Misfits shows except for the KSI pay-per-views. Like I think it's probably not making him a great deal of money, but if he can keep doing this and can build himself up the ranks, I hear people talk all this nonsense about, there's no one he could beat who's ranked at cruiserweight and all of this stuff. There's lads who are in their 50s or the lads who are in their late 40s up at the top of the rankings in the cruiserweight. Now, I know that the WBA president was in attendance on Friday night, so he could be looking for a ranking there. He seems to have a great relationship with the WBA. They gave him a belt last year. Do you remember that? Was that the year before that? I can't remember, but he kind of almost rejected it and was like, I'd rather earn a belt than have you just give me one. Although the WBA like giving people belts too, so I don't know. But yeah, I think not fruitful right now, but there's more to it than if he just fought another MMA guy. I think that was running its course. I mean, even the Nate Diaz fight, it did about 500,000 on pay-per-view, which is a huge pay-per-view number to do. But back when he was fighting Tyron Woodley or something, that would have been a million pay-per-view fight easy. You know, it's a huge, or at least 750, like upper echelon. I think he did 800 when he fought Tommy Fury. People want to see Jake in competitive fights now with legitimate challenges. And so I think this will be more fruitful going forward.
With that said, who stands to be Jake Paul's next opponent? Are we expectant of another left field B-side here?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that it's probably, there's an announcement, today's Wednesday, so I don't know when this is going out, but there may be an announcement already made, and I could look like an idiot because it could be the wrong announcement. But on Thursday anyway, the rumor is, if this goes out afterwards, then I was wrong, I guess. But the rumor is that on Thursday, Ashton Silva's fighting, I think, February 2nd at the same venue, the Caribe Royale in Orlando. And I think there's a possibility Jake slides in on that card because he took no damage. He didn't really get up to much. He clearly didn't cut any weight or put anything into that. He was 199 on the scales, so huge on, excuse me. He was big on the scales at 199. So I think it wasn't like that took a huge amount out of him to do that fight the other night. And so I think he might slide in and do another one in February against another Andre August type of guy. The
KSI, Jake Paul KSI feud rumbles on. But the fact that KSI and Speed had the spar at the same time that Jake Paul was fighting Andre August was clearly circumstantial.
Or was it?
Or was it?
No,
tongue in cheek a little bit there. Donagh.
Look, I was there. I wasn't allowed in, but I went all the way there because I guess I don't know. For whatever reason, I was there, and it was seriously behind closed doors. I was talking to some people behind the scenes, and the idea, I think, was this. I don't think DAZN were too happy. Let's just say that with this whole, and I don't think I'm like breaking any news or anything to say that like DAZN don't want on the same night as one of their biggest stars fights on non-pay-per-view, so a massive night for new subscribers, that their another major star, probably even more than AJ. I mean, who are the big stars on DAZN? AJ, Canelo's not on there anymore.
Canelo was, yeah. You look at those two as
so like KSI is far and away the biggest star on DAZN if you think about it. Like that sounds crazy to say, but it's not. I guess Ryan Garcia is pretty big, but Ryan Garcia is not even on KSI's level. AJ. So yeah, like the biggest star on DAZN, you could argue, KSI goes and does something to actively take away viewers from not like it's Jake's fight. That's what I guess the plan was, but it will actively take away viewers from DAZN and potential subs to DAZN as well. So yeah, I can't imagine DAZN were too happy. That's what I was hearing kind of behind the scenes, and I guess that spar could have gone worse if I don't know what possible outcome would have been worse than what we saw, but yeah, it wasn't a great look for the old influencer scene.
KSI was kind of saying, look, he's kind of done with boxing, but his foot seems to still be in if he's doing these spars with Speed, who might have a fight in the future. Where do you feel KSI's future lands with this extended break that he's having off the back of the Tommy Fury loss?
Yeah, I hope Speed doesn't do a fight in the future if that's how he looks on Friday night. No, he was fine. But I think like KSI is a winner. He doesn't lose. He's not a guy who takes losses. And like I personally have been critical of his reaction to the Tommy Fury thing. He has yet to just straight up say, look, I lost the fight. I was saying it on the Happy Punch News the other day. I was saying that like when Jake lost to Tommy, he made all these excuses, right? I was sick. Did he have a wet dream? That was one of them. He was sick. He had a wet dream. He had an injury going into all of this stuff. But all of that being said, Tommy was better on the night in February. And it would be nice at some point if KSI would say, look, I did the appeal. I really thought I won that fight, but it was super close. Neither of us were great on the night. It was a really tough fight to watch, and fair play to Tommy. The judges gave it to him on the night. That he has yet to do that because, but people will argue then the sore losers are the real champions, right? Those are the guys like Kobe Bryant, any of these, Cristiano Ronaldo, any of these really sore losers are the guys who are really successful. And KSI is a winner in every facet of his life. And I think it's very hard to imagine he quits boxing on a loss, whether he thinks it was a loss or not.
offers are being bounded about back and forth, pre-fight, post-fight, whatever. They seem to keep being thrown around. Logan was kind of pushing for Jake Paul recently, saying, look, you need to jump on Prime after you two have fought each other. When's that kind of going to happen? Are we any closer to this mega fight?
It seems like we're farther away every time they talk about it, bro. Like, I don't know, like, Jake's now beating these 10-1 boxers, and like, I mean, people could say what they want about Andre August, and I think the occasion got to him a small bit, but at the same time, like, people don't want to hear this. KSI people who are watching this will not want to hear me say this. Andre August would smoke Joe Fournier. These guys, like a lot of these guys, I think a lot of these MMA guys that Jake fought. So it's hard to gauge really the levels and all that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people feel KSI beat Tommy Fury. That's a mutual opponent they both had, and nobody felt Jake beat Tommy in February. So I guess styles make fights and all of that, and it was different. They were both different kinds of fights. But it just always feels like we're a little bit farther away from that fight. Every next time they talk about it, like Jake says, oh, there's a contract out there. I don't necessarily, from what I hear behind the scenes, that's not really close to the truth. And the deal that Jake offers, the deal that both sides want, is so unreasonable for the other side that it just makes, I would be surprised. And the size difference is crazy. Jake was 199 for that last fight. And he probably, like, if you're 199, you probably were walking around in the 203, 204 region. And okay, I'll cut the extra couple, but he didn't want to do a crazy, night in the sauna or anything. And KSI really was at his prime weight when he fought Fournier at 176. So a big size difference. I personally think big skill difference, but a lot of people don't. And it just seems like ships in the night, right? It just seems like they're going different ways.
Different ways indeed. For now, the KSI versus Fury fight didn't go the way that KSI wanted it to go, but a rematch the door on the rematch will be shut closed according to John Fury, or at least will have to happen without John Fury if the interview with Danny Flexen is to be believed, because on the back of some of the antics in the fight week leading up to the fight, KSI elected to, in some form, launch his chewing gum at John Fury, which John isn't too happy about. Further adding to that, this rematch will never happen, contracted or otherwise.
I don't know that it was contracted. I'm not sure exactly how all that works out. But first off, John Fury would never lie. John Fury would never tell you the one story on Monday and then a completely different story on Tuesday. That would never happen. So I'm sure that rematch will never. But the other thing is, like, you were there and you're around the scene. You understand this stuff. Have you heard people clamoring for a rematch?
No, not particularly, no.
I've heard a lot more people want to see Jake and Tommy fight again. Because and this is the thing, is like, there's an argument that KSI won the fight. In fact, more than an argument, right? Most people think KSI won against Tommy, or at least on the echo chambers I see on Twitter anyway. And I look like a complete freak who thought maybe Tommy got the better of it. But then Jake and Tommy wasn't like the most competitive fight ever. Jake got the knockdown at the end that made it look a bit better, but Tommy won pretty comfortably. However, the way Jake fought made for a more entertaining fight. He allowed Tommy a bit more leeway. He allowed Tommy to kind of box the way he does, show off his hand speed a little bit, because Jake was earnestly trying from round 1 through to round 8 to outbox Tommy and win the fight. And so I think there is interest in the Jake rematch, but I haven't heard people clamoring for the Tommy one, for the KSI one. And honestly, they did such a big number on pay-per-view, and neither of those main events delivered, right? The Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul certainly didn't. And then KSI and Tommy, the bit of controversy, but also like a terrible fight to watch. I just think if they were going to do a rematch, something would need to change if they wanted to do the kind of numbers they were doing the last time. And certainly after if they did the number they say, then, which Happy Punch reported, so it's 100% true, I think that then they wouldn't want more money, and to make more money, they'd need to make it a more believable sell. So KSI would need to do another run of fights like he did this year. I'd be surprised.
Numbers are the operative word indeed, and the number one being the first card of the year launches next year in Leeds. What can you tell us about this card, and in terms of the traction it's getting as well too?
Yeah, that's I was about to have one answer for you, and then you said, and the traction it's getting. I thought, oh, that's a whole nother That's a whole nother question. Very clever on your part. But yeah, HS Tiki Taki versus Teo Richie, a household name. And I think what was initially planned was HS Tiki Taki versus Chase Damore. And I guess despite the fact he's 6'3", they reckon that this guy just couldn't get over 200 pounds. I guess he's lean, right? He's in good shape. I actually think getting over 200 pounds is pretty easy, personally. But I guess he doesn't want to do the Corby method of bulking, I suppose. And so that's the fight anyway. This Richie guy, I've never heard of him. Apparently some sort of an OnlyFans guy. And the kind of guy that HS Tiki Taki and his people do not like. So if you know what I'm saying. And I think maybe he's good. What's really a cool element to it is BJ Flores is training this Richie guy, and then London Shooter training HS Tiki Taki. So you've got a little bit of KSI versus Jake going on there. Although I'd be surprised if Jake showed up to something like that. And yeah, I think interesting little matchup, interesting little fight. And otherwise, the undercard I think is going to be good. El Brook is going to be in the co-main event against AJ Bunker. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that, but the undercard will be out by the time this goes out anyway. But that's the plan, or at least that's what, if it's not out there yet, that's what they're teasing, is El Brook versus AJ Bunker for the belt, whatever belt AJ Bunker has. And and then I think another couple of people, I think there will be Happy Punch involvement both on and off, both in and out of the ring. I think there'll be Happy Punch involvement on the broadcast, and then I think there'll be a couple of fighters from the team. So expect to see some of those guys involved on, was it January the 20th in Leeds? It's going to be an interesting card. It'll probably be one of the best non-pay-per-view cards Misfits do, although the Brazilian one, I believe, is not going to be pay-per-view as well. And that's got some serious names on it too.
Happy Punch involvement in and out the ring, does that include you maybe not holding up some shorts this time round, but you on some sort of other form where the spotlight's on you?
I will probably not be involved in any way on the broadcast, but I think that if you look up the Happy Punch roster, perhaps someone with whom I'm very close might be on the broadcast in some way, and a couple of fighters, more than one, from the roster will be fighting too, I think.
Well, we wait with bated breath. Donagh, pleasure speaking to you. Where can we find you on your social media presences?
Everyone follow Happy Punch everywhere, and then follow me, Donagh Corby, DONAGH CORBY_ on Twitter, no underscore on Instagram, and unfollow Mirror Fighting if you don't. No, I'm joking. No, unfollow nobody. Unfollow Eamon Khan at Take Aims on social media. If you could block him, that would be great. And otherwise follow me. Block Eamon, and Happy Punch too.
Never heard him. Appreciate it, Donagh.